Life Jones, where we welcome uncertainty and we explore with curiosity in the second act of life. And this week we're talking about aviation. And in fact, a very specific kind of aviation, the X variety of aviation. And the X variety of aviation are the experimental airplanes. And we're talking about one particular X airplane right now that started its life it became to public life on the 12th of January, 2024. And that's the X-59. Now, the X-59 is a supersonic airplane, and there's probably only ever going to be one of them. It's a proof of concept airplane. And they want to prove, Lockheed Martin, NASA, and a bunch of other people probably wanted to prove, or at least find out if they could prove, that it's possible to fly over land and produce a quiet, mild, supersonic boom. Supersonic boom is the result of an airplane or of something moving faster than the speed of sound. And the way that works is that the object, it could be a bullet could do it. The object is moving through space, through air, at not necessarily ground level, but air. It can't be in space. I did that all backwards, didn't I? I kind of got that. So it happens in the air. You got to have atmosphere for there to be a supersonic boom. And what happens is that the object moves through air so fast that the air can't get out of the way. So it pushes on the air and causes a friction, and that friction causes a wave of sound that sound like an explosion. And the supersonic boom that you hear when an airplane goes supersonic is just that. It's the air's not getting out of the way fast enough, so it comes back and it makes a very, very loud crack. Now you can hear a similar kind of crack when a helicopter rotor blades will go supersonic, because they're 30 feet out from the center of axis and they're spinning. And because they're so far away, they're spinning a lot faster than the center of axis. So they're going supersonic, and that's why you hear that pop, 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 pop with the helicopter. It's not quite as loud, obviously. The other place you can hear a supersonic crack is the crack of a bullwhip. When you crack a bullwhip, it creates something going faster than the speed of sound, and it's a very mild little supersonic boom. And that's what they're trying to eliminate with the X-59. The X-59 is a gorgeous, gorgeous airplane. And there is nothing quite as gorgeous as this. Even the SR-71, which the SR-71 is a gorgeous airplane, but this supersonic, quiet supersonic I think it's even more attractive than that. Now, the beginning of the X program started back in 1947 with a man named Chuck Yeager, and he flew the very first airplane to successfully break the speed of sound, the Bell X-1. And it was a rocket-powered airplane, and he flew that airplane to a speed of Mach 1.6. So he broke the speed of sound and then some. And that was the very first time that human beings went that fast. And after that, there were a bunch of other airplanes. And another cool one that I love to talk about, I love to look at, I've had a model of it as a kid, is the X-15. The thing that's special about the X-15 is that in October, I think it was October 4th of 1967, the X-15 flew at 4,520 miles an hour. Let me say that again. If an airplane flew at 4,520 miles an hour, that's Mach 6.7, and it's really fast. And it flew to an altitude of almost 20 miles, which is almost space. That really is the edge of space. And that's where the X-15 flew, and it still holds the record today. Nothing has flown that fast. And the X-59 won't fly that fast. The X-59 is probably not ever going to make Mach 2. They're looking at Mach 6, I think, to run their tests, to run their quiet tests, because if the airplane is going just at 767 miles an hour, that's the speed of sound in a condition of 20 degrees Celsius at sea, and I think that's at sea level. So when you go 768 miles an hour, you have broken the speed of sound. And that's when that sonic boom, that's when that pressure starts to build, that's when you get a whole bunch of friction on the airplane itself, and it becomes overheated. A lot of things happen, a lot of things change when you start moving something that fast. But that's what NASA and Lockheed Martin Skunk Works wanted to do, is they wanted to build an airplane that proved the fact that you could move faster than the speed of sound and still keep the sound pollution, because that's what it is, it's sound pollution. When you have something, anything, you know, like the guy who pulls up in the car next to you with his windows rolled down and with the stereo blasting, that's a kind of pollution too. But this kind of pollution breaks windows when you go that fast. So the X-59 is designed not to do that. And part of the reason that they did it is, you'll notice that the nose of the airplane is very, very thin. Now, and I thought about this a lot. It's like, I don't know if it's my phallic desire or whatever it is for that airplane. It just, that long nose is really freaking cool. And there's only one person sitting in there. And if you look at it close enough, you're going to see that the pilot doesn't have any forward-facing windows. He's got side windows, but nothing forward-facing. He is looking at a computer screen with a monitor and a television camera outside his airplane. And that's how he sees the horizon. So it's sort of artificially generated. And that's sort of something that's happened over the last, you know, it's relatively new in aviation, that idea that you don't necessarily need to see the real deal to have the real deal. So that's what's going to happen in the X-59. They built it that way. And what happened is that the shape of the aircraft has a lot to do with, the shape and the size of the aircraft have a lot to do with the way that sonic boom forms. The shape of the wings and where the wings are in relation to the engine and where the engine is and how the engine takes air in and puts it out, and if it's on top or on bottom. All of that stuff calculates for and against sonic booms. And the guys at Skunk Works, man, these guys, I mean, they've built some pretty cool airplanes. They built the U-2 airplane, and they also built another very, very sexy airplane, the SR-71 Blackbird. And that's really close. That's really close to the X-15. The X-15 is really close to the X-59. So in sort of like in sexiness, airplane sexiness, they're getting closer and closer to the X-59 as you go up. Well, I guess the Blackbird was came after the X-15, so it's not chronologic anyway. So anyway, that's the way that works, is that the speed of sound is broken. The speed of sound is pushed to a limit where it can't get out of its own way. It makes a sound that is really loud and disturbing, and they flew Concords, you know, they flew the Concorde across the country, and it had sonic booms, and people complained. So the SST, our supersonic transport, the Concorde, flew its last flight sometime in 2003. So not ancient history, but you know, long enough ago to sort of like be forgotten. And unfortunately, that airplane never really was used to its maximum potential anyway. And I have to ask myself, and I asked myself this several times, is why am I so curious about this? And there's several reasons. One is that it's an airplane. And I'll probably do more airplane stuff in the future, because I grew up in an aviation family, and so we spoke airplane. We spoke airplane from a very young age, right? And it's exciting to see this new innovation. It's sort of like something new like this hasn't happened in a while. They've made like, not rocket ships, but fighters, that are single seat or double seat or whatever, and they're for fighting, and that's, that isn't really, I mean, it's cool, but it's not as cool as this. If they can prove this technology works, if they can prove that this shape, this airfoil, this pointy nose works, then they'll be able to move into building it for commercial flight. Now, there's other people doing commercial flight right now. There's other people exploring the possibility of supersonic flight, and they're not doing, I mean, it's a difficult hurdle to overcome. Boom, Ovation is one of those that's looking at commercial flight for this, and they're using a different technology. They're doing something that's essentially the sine wave, the noise wave won't reach the ground. So to me, that sounds like they're going to try to get into altitude high enough so that they can fly beyond the reach of the sound wave hitting the ground, and that's how they plan on getting over it. And there's others where it's I mean, the field is kind of wide open, and I think that's really good. As you'll see at the end, that's part of the thing that is really good about what's happening right now. And the old airplanes, of course, they'll always be cool. They won't ever not be cool. So we might even do a thing on old airplanes, and really old airplanes, and blimps, and balloons, and what else? Who was it? Pegasus? No, not Pegasus. I can't remember that dude that had the wax wings, and he flew too close to the sun, and that's not, I mean, that's ancient history, right? Anyway, so the thing that I've learned here is that NASA is the only governmental agency that I have had any trust in. And that was kind of, I didn't realize that. I mean, I was kind of aware that, growing up as we in the Jones generation grew up with stuff going on that was, sketchy, and, how come these people are doing this, and how can I trust my government if they do that? But NASA, I trusted. And probably because my dad worked for, he was a contractor. He was a Boeing contractor at NASA in Huntsville, Alabama, back in the 60s. And I grew up with him. I mean, and I suppose I grew up with the White House and, the Statue of Liberty and all that stuff. But I learned not to trust them. Science is real. And that's sort of been something that's lost today. The fact that science is real, and there are people out there that want to tell me or you or whoever, they want to tell us that, no, they really didn't go to the moon. They really didn't do that. And the earth is flat, and, the Holocaust never existed. And it's like, science is real. Those aviators wouldn't have died. Those astronauts wouldn't have died if they were just making this shit up. They wouldn't have done it that way. So science is real. And what we get from that, we don't know. And that is the coolest part of all, is that when somebody is exploring one path, something else develops that they unintended, never imagined that could have come from studying an airplane that has a quiet sonic boom. Who knows what it is? Maybe it's a material science thing. Maybe it's some kind of fabric or some kind of something that builds the airplane that is able to, keep solar radiation off our skin or something. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And if we don't do the science, we're not ever going to get there. if we make ourselves stupid, we're not going to get there. And I'm afraid that the United States of America is more interested in being a bully than it is being smart. They're more interested in solutions by force than they are solutions by thinking and talking their way through them. And I've been doing some, last week when I talked about gun ownership, I really kind of dug down into that part of our past that our older brothers and sisters showed us. Our boomer brothers and sisters showed us the age of Aquarius and what that could mean, and we're still not quite headed in that direction. Maybe if enough of us get angry, and enough of us Life of Jones folks get angry, that we can rattle their cage and they can't ignore us. That's what I hope. So next week, I want to talk about my equine therapy. That's next week's subject is equine therapy. It's a very fascinating subject with those horses, and I can't wait to tell you. I'll see you then.